Will President Biden's latest move be the final nail in the coffin for American consumers? Are these tariffs on Chinese goods set to cause skyrocketing prices and economic chaos? The move to implement further tariffs on Chinese products could send ripples through the global economy and is therefore a decision that has inevitably sparked a lot of debate. In this video, I will be breaking down why these tariffs are expected to hurt the US economy more than China's, effectively backfiring. President Biden has recently announced that Chinese electric vehicles will be taxed at 100%, effectively doubling the cost to American consumers. Now, this comes alongside the already $300 billion tariffs in place on steel, solar, and various other products originating from the Trump administration. On the surface, this might seem like a proactive step to bolster domestic production and safeguard jobs. But there's much more to this story. So why are these tariffs actually coming into play? Well, the United States' position on Chinese products is that China is overproducing. Overproduction is a new buzzword contrived by US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and other members of the administration, and it's being used as a pretext for excuses to hit Chinese manufacturing. We've all in some way or other come into contact with goods manufactured in China. In many industries, global manufacturers competing with China to produce these goods simply cannot compete on cost. And because of this, the US is looking for ways to block those Chinese goods from having unfettered, free access to global markets. And therefore, by doing so, protect their own domestic companies before they go bust, trying to keep up with their Chinese counterparts. In other words, countries are being outcompeted and they can't keep up with China. So the US is having to find more creative ways to deal with it. Now, one of these creative ways has been to increase tariffs on various Chinese imports, including the 100% tax on electric vehicles that we've seen, as well as maintain previous tariffs on over $300 billion worth of goods. And with this, the US is seeking to prevent a repeat of the China shock of the early 2000s, which saw American manufacturing decline in the face of cheap Chinese imports. Now, what's more, the US is trying to pull other G7 countries into their scheme, erecting a potential united front of trade barriers with Europe and its allies on the inside and China on the outside, protecting their markets and their manufacturers from being overwhelmed by Chinese goods. Despite these measures, Yellen is trying to insist that the US is not pursuing an anti-China policy, but rather responding to what she sees as unfair practices that could undermine global economic stability, without pointing out what specifically the Chinese are doing that is unfair. She's also claiming that what she calls China's aggressive industrial policies, which in fact is simply being supported by state subsidies, similar to how the US subsidizes many of their key industries. These subsidies are preventing other countries, including emerging markets, from developing their own industries, and that's why she is so concerned. So, what are the full extent to the tariffs? Well, earlier this week, President Biden announced a 100% tariff on electric vehicles, a 25% tariff on steel and aluminium, and a 50% tariff on semiconductors, as well as a 50% tariff on solar panels. The administration claims these measures are necessary to protect American industries and ensure that the US remains competitive in key sectors. However, in fact, they could end up hurting the US economy much more than China's, and I'm going to explain why by breaking down the potential economic impacts. First, let's talk about consumer prices. Now, tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods, and when tariffs are imposed, the cost of these goods increases. Importers often pass these costs on to consumers, leading to higher prices for these products. In many industries where these tariffs are set, American competition just simply is not up to the same level as the Chinese, meaning American prices are already much higher than necessary. The cheaper option will be artificially inflated by the tariffs, meaning that American consumers will see significant price increases on all the items tariffed. For instance, the 100% tariff on Chinese EVs will make these vehicles prohibitively expensive. This not only reduces the consumer choice, but also hampers the adoption of environmentally friendly technologies, makes it harder for people to adopt them. Additionally, higher prices for semiconductors and solar panels will slow down advancements in technology and clean energy, sectors that are crucial for global future growth. Next, consider the impact on American businesses. Many US companies rely on Chinese imports for raw materials and components. The increased costs due to tariffs will squeeze profit margins, forcing companies to raise prices, cut jobs, or reduce investment and research. For example, the 25% tariff on steel and aluminium will increase production costs for American manufacturers. Small and medium-sized enterprises are especially vulnerable to tariffs because, unlike larger corporations, these SMEs often lack the resources to absorb additional costs or find alternative suppliers, and this will have a trickle effect, leading to a wave of business closures and job losses, further straining the US economy. Another critical aspect to consider is retaliatory tariffs, because of course China aren't just going to sit still and let this happen to them without doing anything in return. It usually ends in a trade war. China are likely to impose tariffs on American goods. This could severely impact US exporters, particularly in agriculture and manufacturing, which are two of America's biggest exports to China, and thus are most likely to be hit. Farmers who have already faced significant challenges in recent years could see reduced demand for their products, leading to further financial hardship. But it's all good me just saying that. Let's look at the historical instances where this has happened before. Now, America has implemented tariffs on Chinese goods in the past. Was it successful? Did it achieve its desired effect? To understand the potential outcome of Biden's tariffs, it's essential to look at the historical context, like the Trump administration's tariffs. Now, during the Trump administration, a series of tariffs were imposed on Chinese imports, sparking a trade war between the two countries. The goal was to reduce the US trade deficit with China and bring manufacturing jobs back to the US. However, the results to the US economy and consumers were undesirable. A study published in autumn 2019 in the Journal of Economic Perspectives found that by December 2018, Trump's tariffs resulted in a reduction in aggregate US real income of $1.4 billion per month and cost US consumers an additional $3.2 billion per month in added tax. According to these studies, the tariffs led to higher prices for consumers, reduced exports, and job losses in certain sectors. The agricultural industry, in particular, was hit hard by the retaliatory tariffs from China, resulting in billions of dollars in lost revenues. Now, this is just my own personal research, so tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but Trump imposed taxes of 30 to 50% in the solar space. China's market share in that industry at the time was 40%. Today, it stands at over 80%. Did they work? I don't know. You tell me. Also, the tariffs on steel aimed to revive the American steel industry. I think they taxed it at like 40 to 80%, but the results, pretty much the same. It always happens with tariffs that these increased costs are often passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices and reduced competitiveness. So, in conclusion, while the Biden administration's tariffs on Chinese goods may be intended to protect American industries, the historical evidence suggests that tariffs likely do more harm than good. Higher consumer prices, increased costs for businesses, potential job losses, and the risk of retaliatory tariffs all point to a negative economic impact for the US. History has shown that tariffs often fail to achieve their intended goals and can have significant unintended consequences. In fact, by the time a country is at the stage whereby they are even thinking of needing to implement tariffs, it's usually too late. Instead of imposing tariffs, a more effective strategy might involve actually investing in domestic industries, enhancing workforce skills, fostering innovation to be able to compete more effectively with your competitors on the global stage. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more travel, business, infrastructure, and geopolitical stories from inside China. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the tariffs being put in place? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.